Do you feel like you're drowning? Like you're functioning, but just barely? And you're still trying to hold everything together? And you feel like if you just screw up your courage and your bravery to the sticking point that you can push through and do just a little bit more? Today, we're going to take a fresh look at bravery and understand that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is stop. Do you want to achieve your goals, but anxiety is tripping you up? Like to keep those fun weekend plans, but depression has you canceling again? Hey, I'm Lori, dog mom, lover of nature, and hygge enthusiast. Positive psychology skills help me overcome chronic severe PTSD. If you're ready to learn how to overcome your anxiety and depression and rediscover happiness and purpose in life, then get your cozy on and let's get started. Welcome back to Practical Solutions for PTSD. So I want to take just a second and talk to you about the Calm Emotional Overwhelm workshop that is coming up. It's going to be on April the 21st at 10 o'clock Central Time. This is a live event, so we all get to hang out together and talk and share wisdom, and I can answer some questions for you. Just whatever you have, would love to hear from you guys. But I wanted to lay out exactly what you'll be getting out of this, so that you know it's worth your investment of time. It is free, so no money, but it is your time, which is even more valuable than your money. So what you're going to be getting is a 45-minute workshop. We're going to walk through 3 powerful practices that you can use to help with chronic stress, depression, anxiety, etc. So the first one is positive perseverance. And you'll learn how gratitude, hope, and grit can help your brain notice progress and possibilities again. Sometimes we lose sight of that. The second one is perspective. So you learn how to shift the way you interpret stressful situations so that your emotional response becomes more manageable. And the third one is purpose, hugely important. You'll reconnect daily actions to meaning so discouragement doesn't take over your motivation. So anytime we can tie our goals, our boundaries, whatever it is, to our values, it is much more impactful and will help us to be able to maintain those for much better than if you don't have them tied to a value. So you'll also receive a simple 5-minute daily reflection practice that you can continue using after the workshop. So this helps solidify things that you've learned in the workshop. It'll be small steps, which will give you steady progress and leads to real change. So I encourage you to sign up. Just go to ceoworkshop.grwebsite.com and reserve your seat today. Again, it's free, April 21st, 10 o'clock Central Time, live event. Really excited. This is going to be fun. So just go to ceoworkshop.grwebsite.com and reserve your seat today. So today we are returning to the Not Broken, Equipped series, and I've really been enjoying this. I used to teach character strengths when I worked for the Army, and it was hands down my absolutely favorite class to teach. Absolutely love this one because it focuses on who you were created to be and leaning into that, and by doing so, uncovering your own personal superpowers. And in this context, it's your superpowers in dealing with anxiety, depression, whatever else we talk about here all the time. So today we're going to be talking about the character strength of courage. Now, we've been going through a list of 24. There are a total of 24 character strengths tied to the values and actions survey. If you haven't taken this survey already, there's a link in the show notes below. I encourage you to do this. It's free. There's no charge, but it provides such a window into who you are, and if either for yourself or for those to your left or right. Great insight. I really love this survey. It does take a little bit of time, but it's not horrible. And again, it's free and it will help you. But there's a list of 24 character strengths that are part of this. And the people who put this together, they separated those into 6 different virtues. Now, these are not hard and fast separations. There's going to be some bleed over from one to the other. But this is a way that we can process the information because the brain operates better when we can organize things into buckets. So that's what they're doing here, is they're creating these little buckets that kind of group like things together. And so we've been going through wisdom, which is head strengths, and we covered curiosity, creativity, love of learning, judgment, and perspective. We wrapped that up last time. So this time we're going to start with courage, which is heart strength. It's our next virtue, and our very first character strength is bravery. Now, often when we think about bravery, we think about bold moments or big moments, risk taking, pushing past fear at all costs. And when I'm recording this, we're seeing this live acted out before us. We have 4 astronauts on Artemis 2 that are coming back from the moon, taking a trip that has never been done before. They've never been this far from the moon. It's super exciting. It's discovery and all this, which takes a lot of bravery. We also just saw the rescue over the last weekend of the pilot and weapons officer out of Iran, and these huge, bold, big moves that were taken by the U.S. military was just amazing to see all this. And I mean, just like we're living in this time. It's so exciting. So you have these big moments of bravery and courage, and absolutely that is part of it. But that's not all that bravery is. Especially for those of us that are dealing with PTSD or loneliness, isolation, or struggling with guilt, or we're overwhelmed with anxiety, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is get out of bed in the morning. It's just so overwhelming. So I want to talk about, we're going to flip the script a little bit on bravery, not to denigrate those bold moments at all, because those are absolutely important and they're necessary, but those are single moments in life and usually have a lot that leads up to them. So we're going to talk about some everyday life and how you can deal with how bravery can help you with that. So one thing that's important to understand is bravery is not forcing yourself to do things you're not ready for. So I don't want you to feel like you have to push through something and do this big thing that you're not ready to perform. It's not about ignoring your fear. In fact, one of my favorite quotes about courage is not the absence of fear, but it's doing the right thing in spite of fear. And I know that's not an exact quote, but you get the point. So we're not trying to ignore fear. In fact, sometimes the fact that you're afraid of it is where you're inviting courage. This is actually where you need courage. You need bravery. So we're not trying to prove your strength to anyone, including yourself. That's not what bravery is about. So at its healthiest, bravery is facing fear with integrity. It's being honest about it. And sometimes being honest about your own fears and struggles that you're dealing with, your own, whatever it could be, your PTSD, your depression, anxiety, being honest about that can be the bravest thing that you ever do. I remember when God put his thumb in my back and said, you need to go to church and tell them that you have PTSD and extreme burnout. I did not want to admit to that. I was still having a hard time admitting I had PTSD at that point. The last thing I wanted to do was get up in front of the church and tell them. But this is where it's important, because you're choosing actions that align with your values, even when your nervous system is uneasy. Now, I'm not asking you to do something you're not ready for, but in spite of how uneasy I was about getting up in front of my church family and telling them I had PTSD and extreme burnout, as much as I didn't want to do that, I had 2 values that were pushing me to it. One was obedience to God, because God told me to do it. So like, okay, here we go. The other thing was I really felt it was important for my church family to know that, so they could understand a little bit of why I was being so weird. And also so they could pray for me more intelligently. So there's 2 values that were pushing me: obedience to God and the fact that I felt it was important for my church family to know this. Sometimes the bravest thing you can do is move forward and take that next step. Sometimes bravery is also stopping. It takes a lot of courage to admit that you are broken, to admit that now I'm not saying you have to stay broken, but to admit that admitting I had PTSD was one of the most courageous things I've ever done. It was really, really hard. And I know that it's difficult to admit to mental health problems. And this is a challenge many of y'all face. There's cultural discouragement for this. There's within our society at whole, but also if you're part of the church world, there's a whole nother set of issues there with admitting to mental health challenges. And so this can take a lot of courage. So sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is stop doing what everybody expects you to do because you know you shouldn't be doing it. Drawing those boundaries and saying, this is beyond what I'm capable of doing in spite of what people expect of you. And drawing those boundaries can be one of the most brave things that you've ever done. So bravery is the willingness to act in alignment with what matters to you, even when fear is present. So when you know it's important that you're spending time with your family, bravery is when you draw a line in the sand and say, I will not stay late for work in spite of how much my boss wants me to, because it's more important for me right now. The higher value is spending time with my family. So maybe I don't take this career promotion. Maybe I don't take this golden opportunity because it's going to take me away from my family when I need to be there. And that's more important to me. Fear doesn't disappear when bravery shows up. So it's not like, I'm really afraid, so I'm going to be brave and the fear is going to go away. In fact, fear is often the signal that bravery is needed and being invited into this moment. Not because something is wrong, but because something matters to you. So you may be terrified to take this, whatever step that is, stopping what you're doing or stepping forward when you need to do that, creating a boundary and sticking to that. All these things could be causing fear and anxiety, but you're doing it anyway. You face the fear, acknowledge that, but then you take that step anyway because you know it's the right thing to do and it aligns with your values. So for a trauma-informed perspective, bravery is not about overriding the nervous system. So I'm not trying to tell you that because, maybe you value time with family. I mentioned this before, but you know that physically, emotionally, you need time by yourself to be able to heal so that you're able to spend this time with family. So maybe you need to draw a line and a boundary, say, I'm going to give myself 15 minutes by myself, just me, nobody else, just me, to be able to do whatever I need to do so that I have the strength and courage to be able to meet the needs of my family. So bravery is going to tell you, I'm afraid to draw this boundary. I'm afraid to take this action, but I can still choose what's right for me in spite of the fear because I'm being brave. So it's not about being fearless. As I said before, bravery is about facing fear with integrity. It's about being honest with yourself and with those around you. Sometimes, like I said, that can be some of the bravest things you ever do. In everyday life, bravery often shows up very quietly. It could look like speaking up when something doesn't feel right. Setting boundaries even when it feels uncomfortable. Saying no without over-explaining. You don't have to give them a 5-minute dissertation when you set a boundary. Asking for help. Now, this one for me was ginormous. I hated asking for help. But sometimes you have to, and it takes a lot of courage and bravery to do that. Resting when you've been conditioned to push. This is so big. And a lot of you folks that are dealing with burnout right now is because we didn't do that. I didn't do this. Resting when you've been conditioned to push. Now, some people tell you, well, I just push through it, push a little bit harder. And you do that and you push yourself right over the cliff. It's important that you learn to set those boundaries. And it takes a lot of bravery, especially when everybody around you has this culture of just pushing through. And you're like, no, I'm not going to do that. I'm going to stop. That takes a lot of bravery. So for people with anxiety, bravery might be allowing yourself to feel discomfort without immediately escaping it. We don't like to feel anxious. That's not fun. But sometimes you just have to say, okay, right now I don't feel really great. And admit to that and deal with it, face it, and then work your way through it. For people with depression, bravery might be getting out of bed. It might take all the courage you have just to get out of bed. Or acknowledging how hard things feel without minimizing them. Folks, for those of you that have never dealt with depression, I'm so happy for you. I truly am. But if you have been in depression, sometimes if you feel like you're walking through quicksand or just is so hard to take the next step. It's like it takes all the courage and strength you have to face life sometimes when you're dealing with depression. And so that could be what bravery is for you, is getting out of bed and making the bed, getting dressed and facing your day. That may be loads of courage to be able to do that. Or it could just be acknowledging how hard things are feeling at that moment. For seasonal depression, bravery could look like adjusting expectations rather than forcing productivity. Sometimes, because of the culture we live in or the socially acceptable behaviors around you, it can be difficult to admit. Like for me, January is a low energy month, so I'm going to minimize how much social engagement I have. I'm going to try to minimize how much I'm expecting of myself, kind of take it easier that month. You've got other people that's going full bore in January. I mean, they're setting 50 million goals. They have all this ambition, this energy, this excitement, new year, new goals, new achievements. And I'm sitting here going, I can hardly go right now because I'm just really struggling. And accepting that and drawing my boundaries to protect me and knowing what is healthy for me can take a lot of courage and bravery to do that. And I'm relaying that to you because it's the same thing goes for you. And those moments that are difficult for you and everybody around you is like, hey, let's just go blah, blah, blah. And you're drawing boundaries, that takes bravery to be able to accept that, admit to that, and live to your standards and your values. Now, in spite of the fact that we have these big moments, these big, bold moments of bravery that we've seen that we talked about earlier, bravery at its heart is rarely dramatic. Most of the time, it's very internal, and it's like having this courage to live to your values, to say no when you need to say no, to step up when you need to step up, to do what has to be done, what needs to be done to be able to live to your values. So, we talked about this a lot. Every single time we talk about a character strength, we also talk about the dark side. Every single one of these has a dark side when it's misunderstood or is overused or used in the wrong context. Bravery is no different. So if you're overusing it or using it in the wrong context, it could look like recklessness, overexposure, ignoring your limits, and this leads to burnout. And I've been down the burnout road. It is not fun. If you can at all avoid this, you want to avoid it. Do not go down the burnout route. But many trauma survivors were praised for being brave when what they were actually doing was enduring and surviving. They were staying silent, staying compliant, staying in unsafe situations because they had no choice. That kind of bravery is really not what we're talking about here today. That is survival. Now, sometimes it does take bravery to survive, but that's not what we're talking about today. Survival is absolutely honorable, and sometimes that's all you have the capacity to do and all you're able to do. But it's not something you need to keep repeating. As soon as you can get out of that situation where you're in survival mode and start getting into healing and thriving mode, that's where you want to be. So true bravery does not require self-sacrifice to that degree. It includes self-protection. And I know you're like, okay, this sounds really selfish and self-centered. If you use up your number one resource, which is you, by the way, how are you going to do all the other stuff that needs to be done? And I used to tell this to folks at the Army. I will say it here. The more people that depend on you to be able to get through their day, and the greater that dependency is, the more important and absolutely equal, it is that important that you take care of yourself. Because if you don't take care of yourself, you're not going to be able to be there for the people that need you. So if you want to translate this into maintaining a car, and I'm going down a little side trail here, but this is important. If you look at car maintenance and you're going to take a trip with your family is very important to you. You want to keep them safe. So you're going to take the car in and make sure you got the oil change, the tire pressure, make sure the engine's working, make sure your car is in optimal operating condition before you hit the road with your family, who is very precious to you, is a great treasure. You're taking care of that car. Is that selfish? No. It's important to maintain the car. The same thing holds true with you. If you are not taking care of yourself so that you are able to take care of those that are depending on you, it's the same as getting in that car with no maintenance and heading out on a cross-country trip, not knowing if the car is going to make it. It is so, 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 so important that you are taking care of yourself, especially if you have people depending on you. So important. Please take time to take care of yourself. And setting those boundaries, making that a priority, can take a lot of bravery because not everybody understands this. And some people are going to say it's selfish and self-centered. It is not. It takes bravery to stand up against that and to set those boundaries and to hold yourself accountable to that and true to that. When it comes to trauma, I'll get back on track here. When it comes to trauma like PTSD, anxiety, depression, how does bravery actually help us? So for PTSD, bravery helps reclaim choice. Trauma takes away agency in a lot of ways. But bravery can restore it by allowing you to decide what you engage with and when. By making that choice, I cannot handle XYZ today, so I'm going to bow out. Or this is something I can do, but I can do in small portions. I may not be able to stay for the entire thing, but I'll go for 15, 20, 30 minutes. For anxiety, bravery helps you build tolerance gradually. It supports exposure at a pace your nervous system can handle rather than overwhelming it. So I've talked about this before, but it fits really well here. When I returned to church after being absent for months on end, my return was gradual. Like I would only go on Sunday mornings and only occasionally at that. I didn't go every single Sunday morning because I couldn't handle it. And then I would go only Sunday mornings, and eventually I started adding Sunday nights, etc. But it was a gradual thing, gradually exposing myself to that. And it took bravery to do that because I was very anxious when I went back. So for depression, bravery could mean staying present with numbness and heaviness without judging yourself for it. So when you're feeling that numbness, you're like, okay, this is how I feel, and it's okay. I don't necessarily want to stay here forever. I want to be able to get past this. But right now it's okay that I'm feeling heavy, that I'm struggling right now. I don't have to judge myself and say that I'm, somehow at fault or failing because I'm struggling with this. For seasonal depression, bravery often looks like honoring your body's need for rest and light without shame. And I've already talked about this a little bit, so I won't get into it a whole lot. But understanding when you hit those limits and honoring that and being true to yourself. Again, that integrity. Bravery includes integrity. Bravery does not cure your symptoms. It's not going to be like a magic wand you just wave and like, oh, I can be brave and all my fear is going to go away, all my anxiety is going to go away. But it helps you relate to them differently. It helps you to accept them and to face up to them. And when you do that, it helps you deal with them in the long run. It makes that process much shorter. So there's some ways that you could grow your bravery. You want to define your values. This is so, so, so important. And it's actually something I help you do in the coaching sessions as I work with you and help you define your values. Bravery needs direction. You can't just be randomly brave about something. You need to be able to direct that. So ask yourself, what matters to me here? And let values guide your action, not fear or pressure. So not social pressure, not internal pressure. You're going to let your values guide your actions and not your fear or your pressure. Take small, we say it again, take small, brave steps. Bravery grows through repetition, not intensity. Doesn't mean, and now obviously there's big moments of bravery, but they built that up to that, one small step at a time. So it could be one conversation, one boundary. You don't have to set all of them at once, just do one honest moment. So maybe you admit to one person, and maybe that's like your best friend or your doctor, that you have PTSD or you're dealing with depression. And then maybe you can tell someone else after that, but one honest moment at a time. Number 3 is to distinguish bravery from urgency. Not everything that feels urgent is important. And this can be difficult because the urgent things just scream so loudly. But it doesn't mean it's important. So pause and ask, is this aligning with who I am? or am I reacting to the situation? Number 4 is let rest be part of bravery. It can be so hard sometimes, especially if you're type A personality, you're very driven, or if you live in a people around you are driven, whatever that could be. It could be really hard to just choose to take rest. But choosing rest when your system is overwhelmed is often one of the bravest acts you can do, is to say, look, I'm just going to stop and take a rest. And everybody's like, oh, what? Yes, this is what I'm going to do. So bravery isn't about doing more. It's about doing what's true. Again, integrity, being true to your values, being true to what's important. So as we close this, I want you to remind you of a couple things. Bravery is not measured by how much fear you conquer. It's about how true you are to yourself. And you don't need to prove your courage. If you're here listening, navigating your life, working through all the trauma that you're dealing with, you're already practicing bravery. And I want to give you a reflection to wrap this up. I love these. What is one small values-aligned brave step that you can take this week? Just one. And make that step something that ties to your values. So one small step that you can take that is aligned to your values. Doesn't have to be a big one. In fact, it's easier sometimes to start if it's small. Just make it something that's true to yourself. You don't need to act on it right now. You can just let that idea settle for a bit and think about it. What is one step I can take today or this week that is aligned with my values? Thanks so much for joining me. I look forward to having you back next week. I apologize for running late today. My little sidebar had just running a little bit long. I look forward to seeing y'all, and we'll talk to you later. One final reminder to sign up for the Calm Emotional Overwhelm Workshop. Just go to ceoworkshop.grwebsite.com. As for April 21st at 10 o'clock Central Time. Hey, my friend, I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If so, would you please take 30 seconds and share it with someone you know who may be struggling with depression and anxiety? Also, would you please leave a quick review for the show? Knowing how this podcast is helping you fills my heart with so much joy, and it motivates me for future episodes. For now, it's time for Sam and I to head outside to enjoy some sunshine and fresh air. We'll see you back here on Tuesdays and Thursdays for more great episodes.